Thank you guys for joining us here at Round Pond today. I'm Chef Cameron. I have my colleague Josh here. Before we get started on everything, we're going to give everyone a few minutes to join on here. I'm going to go ahead and start getting prepped and set up, and we'll get started soon.
If you're ready like us, take a moment, open up some wine. We're going to do the same ourselves. We're going to get some Sauvignon Blanc, a little Super Tuscan open today to enjoy with some of the olive oils that the chef has prepared for us. And we want to encourage you to just take a moment and relax. And thank you for joining us today. What would you like to taste, Cameron? A little Sauv Blanc, a little Reserve Sauv Blanc.
Sauv Blanc, yeah, that's one of my favorites to drink. I'm not really eating anything. It's a nice sipping wine, good flavor on there. Go ahead and get this turned on, Josh.
So I'll be the 2018 Rutherford Sauv Blanc there for you, Cameron. I'll enjoy a little Reserve Sauv Blanc myself then. How's the week been for you so far, buddy?
Not too bad, not too bad. I'm very happy it is Friday.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's nice to be here too, actually.
It is. It's a nice day. It's a little bit breezy, but I like the breeze. Chill going. Alrighty. Give it a few more minutes.
Absolutely.
Go ahead and join on.
Did you cook anything good at home this week for the lady?
This week been doing a lot of barbecue.
Nice.
So I've been enjoying the free time, trying to practice on some open fire cooking and smoking, those kind of things, testing out some ribs and seafood. So could bring some of those things hopefully to a video here one day on
Nice.
property, play around with that.
Your neighbors must be loving you.
Oh, they do. I did bring them a plate the other day, actually. They liked it, so
Okay.
did some ribs for the family. Alrighty, we are set to go.
Should we give them a few more minutes? How are we doing on that? All right.
Wine going. Alright, I think we are all set. Let's go ahead and get started. Before we go ahead and get into the cooking and kind of while we're here, what we're doing, we're going to invite up a special guest here that is going to kind of explain some of the things we're doing with our garden and produce and so forth. So we're going to invite up Daphne here.
Well, good afternoon. It's so nice to have you join us today. You know, here in the Napa Valley, we think about wine and grapes, and it's such a great microclimate for those products, but it's really great for our vegetable garden too. And so here we are in early spring, and you know, back in the day, we just thought about iceberg lettuce, but this time of year, we can grow some really beautiful, tender butter lettuce that the chef is going to be using today in his demonstration. We have all different kinds of herbs that come from the Mediterranean. This is known as the Mediterranean climate. Our artichokes and our spring onions, and of course, our beautiful, tender asparagus. So enjoy this cooking demonstration, and thank you for joining.
Thank you, Daphne. Josh, come back up as well. So just a little introduction for those of us who maybe haven't had a chance to come here on property. I'm sure, as Josh is, we're all looking forward for everybody to be able to join us here. Until that time, we hope everybody is staying home, staying safe, and then we'll get back to things hopefully soon, normal. Myself, I've been at Round Pond for about a year now. I've been cooking professionally, coming up on 5 years or so. Had the opportunity to come out here. Round Pond so far has been a wonderful job, a wonderful family, got wonderful colleagues that we've been able to work with and meet. And then again, you see all the produce that we have. It makes it very easy for a chef to have things to come up with, dishes to create, along with the many olive oils, which we carry as well. So we're gonna go into just some of my personal favorite things I do property as well for our uses with the olive oils. Some of those we're gonna talk about how they coincide with our wine as well. And I'll let Josh kind of speak on that and introduce himself.
I'm Josh, and I've been here with Round Pond for about 5 years now. I spent quite a bit of time on this beautiful terrace, and I'm sure I've hosted quite a few of you watching. I've also spent some time at our wonderful olive mill across the street. We have our Master Miller Emilio on property, who helps us make some of these absolutely wonderful olive oils that we'll be getting into today. And some wonderful wines that I'm sure you've all enjoyed at home as well. Thank you guys for tuning in, and start off with a little explanation about some olive oils for you. So today we're going to get into some of our Italian olive oil, as well as a little bit of our Spanish olive oil as well. And these are both estate grown olive oils from our property. We ultimately try and produce olive oil from harvest to milling in a 4-hour window or less, and that helps give us some of the phenolic properties, antioxidant characteristics of a truly fresh olive oil. For anybody that got some of these at home in the last week and have these sitting at home on their countertops, if you haven't had the opportunity to taste some olive oil, really dive into what I mean by the phenolic properties and antioxidant characteristics of fresh olive oil, I encourage you guys to take a look at our virtual tasting experiences. Myself, Juan, quite a few other educators would be happy to sit down and taste some wonderful wines with you and give you an explanation of why this olive oil is premium olive oil. And then as well, if you guys have any questions, we're here monitoring some of our YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram channels. We'll also do a little Q&A session at the end of this experience, so if we don't quite get to your question in the immediate, please hold on to it, and we'll have an opportunity there to speak with Chef and myself and wrap up some questions with you guys. So turn it back over to you.
All right, so we'll get started. Hope everybody had a chance to get set up, get relaxed. We have our wine. We hope you do as well too. So again, we're just going to cover some things that I like to cook myself. The first thing we're going to start with is one thing that's kind of a staple here at Round Pond that we use on our El Pranzo lunch, as well as on our brunch. As Daphne had mentioned, we have this beautiful butter lettuce. So with these, depending on preference, you can chop it up. Just because of how it looks for a presentation standpoint, I like to just leave it whole. You can drizzle olive oil straight on top, and I hope you guys can see that there. It's not too blurry for you. So we're gonna talk about a vinaigrette that we use with our olive oils, and then our red wine vinegar that we dress on there. So here we have a little bit of our Italian olive oil. Well, we typically use about a cup or so, depending on how many people that we're cooking with. I'm gonna go ahead and pour that in there. Next, we have our red wine vinegar. So that's about 1/4 cup or so. Depending on preference, it's really up to you if you kind of like that more acidic taste inside of there. Again, you can add a little bit less, a little bit more. And then we just add the basic things, the salt, the pepper. Again, that's up to taste. Some people like a lot of that pepper flavor. I typically just do 2 little sprinkles in there of both. Then you can taste it once you kind of blend everything all together to see really if you need to add more salt and more pepper from there. Fresh herbs. So depending on what you have at your garden, one thing we like to use here is thyme, in particular lemon thyme. And I don't know if you guys can see that up close. So lemon thyme, if you can't really tell which one it is, you can always see on the edges. It has that bright yellow color around it. If you get close enough to smell it, you get all the fresh lemons. It feels like you just kind of squeezed one or zested a lemon in front of you. So with that, we just chopped up. You want to pick leaves off the stems. Just chop that up kind of fine in there. We're going to dump that in, and I prefer a lot of herbs in mine. It just adds a lot of flavor, especially fresh. Toss this down here. And then we just give that a little blend up. And you want to just keep blending this till everything emulsifies all together and mix in the salt, the herbs, and all of the oils and so forth. So give this a quick blend up, and as you can see, it's starting to blend together. It's looking like the vinaigrette. At home, if you have a container with a lid, you can always, an easy way, toss everything inside there, put the lid on tight. You give it a good shake or two. Again, you want to make sure the lid's on tight. I've had a few times where that kind of slipped off and you get a vinaigrette all over. So Once that is mixed up in there, give that a little stir. And again, I just like to drizzle that straight over the top. You can cut that fresh inside there. A little bit more. And that is our simple vinaigrette that includes our Italian olive oil. Again, the red wine vinegar. It's something simple. You can store that inside the fridge. Typically with the fresh herbs, I don't like to keep that over about 2 days or so. They start to deteriorate a little bit inside there. But you can always do your vinegar and olive oil, kind of store that aside, and then chop up those fresh herbs and add that to kind of order as you're doing it each day.
Personally, I take any leftovers and I make that vinaigrette into a nice little braising for chicken or some pork chops the next night, the next day or two, and it works pretty well that way as well.
Excellent. So
that looks delicious, Chef.
That's our simple little butter lettuce with a round pond vinaigrette. Go ahead and slide this up here. You guys can see that. All right. So now let's move forward. We're gonna go to asparagus. So that's something, as Daphne showed you, we are growing here on property. We have it seasonally. So these are our purple asparagus. These, as you can see, have just been shaved down. So when you shave the skins off, depending on if you're gonna boil them or grill them from time to time, I prefer the skins off. It just kind of can get bitter depending on if they're a little bit thicker. So, but it's really a preference. You can grill with the skins on as well. And I'll show you for this. So a simple way that we use our olive oil is one that we are going to be releasing, I believe this week or so, is coming out, is our garlic. So that adds a good little flavor when you're grilling the asparagus. Just simple, a little bit of drizzle on top. And coat those around. Again, we just add a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper, and then depending on what you are doing at home as well, you can flavor these up by your preference. If you like a lot more garlic flavor, you can add garlic powder or fresh garlic. Again, it really just depends on you. Because these are shaved as well, they don't take as long to cook on a grill. So you really only need about 2 minutes per side or so, depending on the thickness of these. And our grill should be pretty hot now. We're just gonna go ahead and get that seared down. So when you drop the asparagus, you wanna try to keep them in one place on the grill. If we were doing open fire on there, you probably want that over medium to high heat. That way you get that good char on the asparagus. If you have a grill pan such as this, you kind of just want to use something to press down. I'm used to using my hands if you have tongs and things like that, but with experience you burn them so much you kind of lose all the filling on there. But it's super simple, super easy. With these, I like to drink that with that our white wine that we have there. Just gonna give that a good little grill. What about you, Josh?
I'm enjoying some of the Rutherford Sauv Blanc right now, and at home personally I enjoy some good red, but with the olive oils and that fresh asparagus, absolutely. I see some eggs on deck, and so fried eggs, carbonara, pasta carbonara, something I've made in the last week or two. Another good one with white wine. Super Tuscan is calling my name though a little bit. It's one of my absolute favorites here, and enjoying watching you, Chef. You know, you got a skill that I think we're all a little jealous of.
But we've got an Instagram question about whether or not we have olive trees on property.
We do. We have roughly 10 acres of olive trees on property. They span quite a few of the driveways. So when you come visit us, you can see them in an array of places. Majority of the trees are located out by the Napa River. And we grow 8 different olives here. Most of them are Italian, but we also produce a beautiful Spanish olive oil. And much like the wine, it's all grown here, produced here. It's beautiful estate products.
So here on the asparagus, just after about a minute or so, we just gave it a quick little flip. You can see have a little bit of grill marks on there. It's really all you need for the asparagus when it's peeled. As you take it off the grill, that heat is going to continue to cook it. I don't prefer mine overcooked because sometimes you can get that, I guess you can say, a mushy kind of feeling on the inside. I like them to have a little bit of a crunch still to them. And then once those are grilled, put those right back on the plate with some oil. From there, depending on, again, your flavor preference, what kind of wine and things like that you are serving with, you can garnish that with fresh herbs if you want. You can use our, I like to do our Meyer lemon oil on there. It just gives it that nice little citrus punch to it. Just drizzle that back over the top. Again, this can be a good little side dish if you're cooking, you're grilling, anything for fish, chicken, poultry. We served it here with a variety of things as well. If you're getting really fancy, I like to wrap them up in prosciutto, or if they're a little bit thicker, you can wrap them in bacon as well. It gives it that salty, meaty flavor added onto the asparagus also. So when that's done, I'm going to show you another way that you can take that asparagus as well and serve that in the morning with brunch. So we're going to switch over to doing a fried egg, which is something I love doing just with the olive oils. It gives it that good little flavor. Take this pan off.
For those of you guys that have been here previously, you guys might know we offer a beautiful Sunday brunch experience. That's Sunday exclusive, of course. And then 5 days, 6 days a week, we offer our lunch experience. So if you're sitting here salivating like myself, you can come see us soon, hopefully, and experience some of these wonderful dishes that Chef has to create here for us. Personally, I think Sunday brunch is one of the best. It gives Chef quite a bit of opportunity to explore, have a little bit of a unique menu set every week. Personally, I don't work Sunday, so I might have to come and sit down on a brunch someday soon.
Yeah, our brunch is fun. It's one of my favorite things to kind of cook on the weekends if I'm off and cook for the family. I used to work at another restaurant out in the valley, and brunch was something I ran there, so it was fun just coming up with the different varieties and things you can do with eggs and play around with. I didn't used to like eggs before, and when I started working in a restaurant, I kind of had to learn to like eggs, and now fried egg, runny yolk is kind of the best way I like to eat mine, so I'm going to show you guys how I do that. You start with the pan. A non-stick's a little bit easier. Typically, I start it on a little bit of lower heat. So lower heat, that way when you put the egg in, it doesn't start to splatter, it doesn't burn too quick. I use a little bit of butter we have here. And then we're going to do, just for flavor, a little bit of our Spanish olive oil. Now you want to let that melt down. Have our cracked eggs here. So here on property we have, if you've had a chance to visit, you've been able to see our garden. We have some chickens on property. These actually came from our garden that they brought up today for us to use for this demonstration. So it's kind of nice to have that access again to all the fresh herbs, eggs on property. It just makes it fun for a chef to have that. Get this melted. It's a little breezy today, so sometimes with the burner and the wind, it doesn't want to cooperate with us, but we'll get there.
We're gonna give people the view, Chef. We'll challenge you
I know,
and
you guys get to see the
allow
nice-
people to enjoy where we get to be.
Chef, we had a question about
Yeah.
what you like to make for brunch, and if we'll be doing a brunch class.
A brunch class, we can do a brunch class, that's a good
Mother's Day.
idea.
We're doing one for Mother's Day.
For myself, I'm a fan of biscuits and gravy.
Oh yeah.
It's something I kind of practice a lot. The old restaurant I was at was an Italian restaurant. So it's something that I would practice with a little bit of pork stock and brodo inside there. Fresh made biscuits. Eating too many of those and I can count, but the more you practice, the better you get at it. But yeah, biscuits and gravy. I'm a big fan of steak and eggs as well. You just can't go wrong with the simple, basic, classic thing. So,
Absolutely.
all right, so that's getting melted down now. So go ahead and add our egg. And then we can turn the heat up a little bit. So as you can see, with the egg, you'll start to see the whites at the bottom will start to go from clear, they'll start turning into a solid white, and that is kind of your gauge to tell as the egg is cooking. Again, if you like them runny, you take it off at a certain point, which we'll see. If you prefer your eggs fried or over easy, depending on your style, again, you can flip them over, you can cook them a little bit longer. For this demonstration myself, again, we'll stick with the runny yolk. That's just how I like them. Once it's in the pan, you can do a little bit of seasoning on there. Have some salt, so the wind doesn't blow it everywhere. A little bit of pepper. And then that's the good thing with keeping it on low. You just kind of let that slowly cook. You'll see all the sides, again, continue to go. If it heats up a little bit more, you'll start to see those brown edges around the egg. But some people prefer that. It gives it that nice little char to your eggs too, which adds a little bit of flavor in there. let that keep cooking. Scratch it in here. Sometimes I just check around the edges just to make sure that they're not sticking. You can just kind of go around that with the spatula. If you have enough of the coating, that's why I like to use a mixture of the butter and the oil because it helps them not stick. And then you can, once it starts to kind of cook underneath, as you can see, so you guys can see that there, it gives it a little bit of slide, and that way it's a lot easier to pick those eggs up too as well.
So we had a question about some of the difference between the Italian and the Spanish olive oil. If you guys can hear some of the background noise, we have a tractor passing by. It's an actual working vineyard and farm, you know, so excuse the noises, but it's a beautiful, beautiful atmosphere. So for a quick explanation, if you're curious about the difference of Spanish and Italian, our Italian olive oil is picked for one from green olives, typically a little earlier in the year, September to October season. Our Spanish olive oil we picked a little later, going on towards December in most years, and those olives have begun to turn purple. To keep it simple, the Spanish is usually nice, bright, and fruity. That Italian olive oil can be a little bit more robust, a little bit more that peppery, that green sensation. And again, I encourage you guys, much like these demonstrations, we're offering quite a few different virtual tastings. If olive oil is a curiosity to you, we'd be happy to sit down and do a little one-on-one personal olive oil demonstration and tasting with you as well. I can smell that egg, Chef. It smells amazing.
It is done, so this is how I like my style of eggs. Again, you have all the whites are cooked, but the yolk, it gives it that nice little flavor. One thing I do cook for brunch all the time is eggs over either asparagus or some other kind of vegetable. That we just, once it's all cooked, scoop, serve there. And then another good thing of being on property with all the fresh herbs, as you can see out there, if you can garnish that depending on, again, your preference, what you're drinking with, if you're having wine with that as well. I prefer parsley, some tarragon, just to add that flavor. Sprinkle that over the top. And my favorite part, just the yolk. Get it nice and runny. Spread that flavor all over. And that's just, again, simple little small dishes. Eggs you can put on anything, breakfast, lunch, or dinner. Again, with some grilled asparagus, you can serve those as a side or by themselves.
You can send up like this way if you need some soup, Chef. Be happy to.
We will. We'll let Josh hold that.
Thank you. Hold it. Put a fork and a knife too.
So now we're gonna get into, turn that back on, some demonstration of some cooking of one of my favorite fishes I like to cook, which is tuna. So for tuna, we have a tuna steaks you can typically get at your markets when they're in season or so forth. I prefer them fresh. And you can tell the difference most time from fresh tuna versus some that could have been previously frozen. Those typically you see at a light, brighter pink hue. Sometimes it's a food coloring, but again, I prefer fresh. So we have our tuna steak. I'm gonna show you guys two ways that you can do tuna. So here we have some tuna that I've pre-chopped ahead of time. Again, with the tuna, if you have a steak, you can cut that down, chop it up in cubes as you see, and then we can turn this into a tartare. So that's one of my favorite ways, depending on if it's hot. Again, you're having a nice white wine out there. You want something for the summer just to kind of cool down. So with our tuna, once you get it chopped up, again, this is fresh and raw tuna. We're gonna toss this with a little bit of our blood orange olive oil because I like that citrus flavor anytime with fish. Almost similar to if you have ceviche with a lime citrus flavor in that. So you want to toss probably, for your liking, roughly about a tablespoon or so of that into that chopped up tuna. Just give that a nice stir to coat everything so it has a nice flavor all around. Give that a mix. Grab a little plate here. And if you're looking for a nice way to present it, simple ring modes at home helps the tuna stick. Give that a couple of spoonfuls in there. Heating up our grill in the meantime, I'll show you guys another way like to cook tuna.
I know it's hidden in there, Chef, but I know you're about to make it look beautiful, right?
I am. It's funny. It's always about the presentation. I like the food to hit your eyes a little bit, and then you taste how good everything is after. You get that in there. Press down again, depending on your preference there. You can serve this. I like to either do avocado sometime. I'm a big fan of chives, and right now we are growing those on property, as you can see here. Along with, I like to use the chive flowers or the blossom. And the reason for that, I'm a fan of the big strong onion flavor when it comes to fish, especially with raw fish. So if you've never had a chance to try these, you can just pick the little flowers out. They are edible. It looks nice as well for the presentation. But just one simple bud gives you a nice pack. It almost tastes like you're just chewing straight into an onion. So that kind of onion taste mixed in with the citrus, I prefer on my tuna.
Also delicious with the garlic bloom, if you guys are garlic fans as well.
Yeah,
Another beautiful
exactly.
color in there. But something you guys can do from home. It's quite easy to grow some onions and garlics. I know we've been sending some starters in our CSA boxes for everybody. So if you're a local, be on the lookout for those. Some fresh basil, onion starters, and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, we've been doing those all week. They have a bunch of the produce that we have seasonally here, as you see, the asparagus, our lettuces and the herbs and so forth, such as chives as well. That's one thing you can toss as well, just for the extra flavor on top. And then I like to always garnish mine with just a little bit extra olive oil, just for that extra pop and flavor on there. And that is one way that you can have your tuna crudo. Can I see that? Now we're gonna move on to another way. We're gonna do a pepper crusted tuna. So with tuna, typically if you're grilling the fish, you want it dry. I like to start off with putting a little bit of the olive oil on the tuna, so that way that pepper crust can actually stick to the meat. So we'll start off, let's grab our garlic, give that nice little flavor to it. You just want it to coat all the sides on there. And then for our pepper crusted tuna, we have a mixer. And depending on, again, your spice preference, some people like it a little more spicy or less. This is just a mixture of paprika, a little bit of cayenne, and some garlic powder. So we're gonna use that as our base to mix with our peppercorns. So the peppercorns, when you're doing this, you wanna kind of coarsely ground them so that they're a little bit more thicker. You'll taste that nice peppery punch, as well as if you're searing it inside the pan, those peppercorns, once they cook inside that oil, is gonna give off that nice flavor to it as well. So we'll add a few of those in there. Again, we're gonna have some salt, mix that in there, and our blend of the spices.
And I see questions about our garlic olive oil.
Yeah.
I want to assure you guys, let you know that it is coming back soon. These olive oils are always very popular, and we hope an early release in the next week or two. But for those of you that have been in eager anticipation for it, Chef gets a little early demonstration, early release. But that garlic and some of those other flavors should be back very shortly.
And we're looking forward to it. I love being able to use them to cook with. So. Anytime I'm doing some kind of pepper crusted steak or tuna, I always like to have my seasoning down on a flat surface. That way you're able to get the fish pressed in there, but without really damaging the piece of meat. For olive oil, we'll give that a nice little press. And as you can see, it picks up all the crust for all of your seasonings. I'll flip it to the other side. You can do all sides if you like. Again, it's really a personal preference. I just like having that nice little peppery touch on both sides there. Should have a nice good heat coming from our pan now. I'm gonna go ahead and switch these real quick.
You have a positive like from Miles and Ryan, by the way, just in case that makes you feel good about your job security right now.
Well, I appreciate it. So another thing just to mention as I'm trying to squeeze my hands into these gloves here, with tuna, sometimes you see if you're pairing that with wine, a lot of times they see with fish, you don't necessarily pair that with a red wine. One thing I found when you're doing it with any kind of like peppery crust to it, sometimes our other chef here has done pastrami spice on fish, but it allows you to, especially with tuna, you can pair that with a red wine, which one of my favorites that we make is our Super Tuscan. So a Super Tuscan has that nice peppery kind of spices to it, and pairing that with fish, I've paired that with pork before as well, but I think the pepper crusted tuna has probably become one of my favorite dishes to pair with that.
More tractors again. Sorry if you guys can pick up a little bit of that background noise. Excuse us. That Super Tuscan is a fan favorite. It's something that many of you guys also are very familiar with. That Cabernet and Sangiovese blend. That Sangiovese helps highlight that pepper spice that Chef is talking about. But it also gives us a brightness. It gives us an acidity where your tannic structure isn't going to overpower something like tuna, but still will hold up to a pork chop. It still does. It's a nice dimensional type of resin.
Josh, we've got a question about whether or not we have an olive oil club.
You know, we no longer offer a solely gourmet club, and one of the issues has been with the olive being a very popular product, as well as the fluctuations in harvest. Some years we have an abundance of olives, and other years we see a downturn. But our club members, all of our club members, receive a discount on those olive oils as well. You can customize your club membership. You can always ask for those olive oils, and they are available for everybody. So if you're watching today and you like what you see, Meyer Lemon, Blood Orange, especially one of my favorites, is available for you guys.
All right, so have our pan hot here. You can see with the little cast iron, you start seeing the smoke is coming from it. So that's a good sign. When it comes to cooking tuna, I myself, again, you can serve it raw. If you are gonna cook it, I don't like to overdo the tuna, especially when you're just getting that crust. You just kind of want to sear the edges. The heat's gonna continue to cook a little bit in the middle, but I prefer mine a little bit on the rarer side to medium rare. So once our pan's hot, again, we're gonna use a little bit of our garlic oil, just to impart some of that flavor in there. Don't need to cook this very long at all. Towel here, make sure our pan gets nice and coated. And then you always want to lay the fish down away from you. That nice sear. And hopefully you guys can see that and hear those spices coming. So as you see with tuna, it starts to change that color at the bottom. You can see as it's starting to crisp up around that skin. And that's what you want to see on there. You just want to go maybe a minute or two per side, get that nice brown crust. Wish you guys are here to smell it. It's a nice little peppery paprika.
You're driving me crazy over here in the corner, but
Going on with the wind blowing, it's just going around. Once you get that nice little crust there, spatula, flip it over. Gonna do the other side again, a minute or two. Sometimes, depending on preference, you can add a little bit of butter into this and baste it just to add those flavors. I tend to use a lot of butter at home on things. It's just my preference. But again, you can use olive oil or so forth just to bring out that more pop and flavor on all the peppercorns. Let that get a nice crust on the other side. And with tuna, again, you don't want to move it too much inside the pan. Once you kind of lay that down, you just want to let that sit until you get that nice char on each side before you flip it. And again, a good gauge is just to check along the edges at the bottom. You'll be able to tell. That's one way. If you don't want to coat all the sides, you can kind of use that to see how much is cooking actually through the tuna. From there, that's about how I like mine. I'll go ahead and take that off and just let that rest there. Pan turned off. And then from there, depending on how you want to serve, should have that nice little crisp crust on there. Tuna's best with a very sharp knife to slice that through. And you can see you have your crust. Still a little bit rare inside. Again, if you want to cook it a little bit longer, probably about 4 minutes per side or so. If you baste that in butter as you are basting it, it's going to continue to cook, and that heat through it will transfer over as well. And then again, you can serve that any kind of garnish that you prefer. If you're serving that with a wine, you probably want to just keep that peppery kind of flavor profile on there to go with the red. If you're serving it with the white, for instance, you can garnish that with any of those fresh herbs. If you have those inside your house, it brings out that kind of herbaceous notes inside of the white wine as well. My personal preference for tuna is when it comes to our olive oil, or probably the citrus, Meyer lemon or the blood orange if you have those at home.
Personally love the Meyer lemon and slices of avocado with blackened tuna. I mentioned avocado earlier, but that's, again, delicious and making my mouth water, buddy. I'm looking for a fork.
Nice little drizzle on top and have a little pepper crusted tuna there. So again, these are just a few dishes that I like to cook to use our oils and so forth. There's a bunch of other varieties that you can play around with at home and use these for different flavor profiles. So while we have the time, while everyone's at home, I encourage you to get inside the kitchens, and it's fun to test out and see what your favorite preference is. We would love to hear that as well. So hope everybody's enjoyed this so far today. If there's any questions, guess we can get into
Chef, we had someone on Instagram ask if you could repeat all of the oils that you used on the different dishes.
Yes, so with our butter leaf lettuce, we use a blend of the Italian olive oil that is mixed with a little bit of our red wine vinaigrette, lemon thyme, and then some salt and pepper on that one. For the asparagus, we used our garlic olive oil. You can use, again, if you have them, Meyer lemon, depending on your flavor. For the tuna crudo, we use the blood orange, just to give it that citrus for the freshness. And then on the pepper, we seared that in a little bit of our garlic oil in the pan. So.
And then we have a question as well, asking if this video will be available after the live session ends. And of course it will be again through all of our social media platforms and YouTube as well, if I'm not mistaken. So you guys will have 3 different places that you can find these. As well, if you have any questions, you can direct some to me, josh@roundpond.com, chef@roundpond.com as well. And either one of our wonderful chefs would be happy to kind of answer any personal questions that you might have had that you were too bashful to ask, maybe.
Any questions about the recipes or anything like that, we'll be happy to answer and help everybody out as well.
Chef, what's your favorite thing to put the Meyer lemon oil on, and what other recipes can you make with the Meyer lemon oil?
My favorite thing to put, again, depending on what I'm eating, sometimes I'll add it to some grilled chicken. I myself prefer to grill everything. It's just my flavor profile. I like and what I like to do in my spare time. Another good thing for that, if you're making a salsa verde, you can use fresh herbs, chop that up, a little bit of garlic, salt, pepper to taste, and then you can add olive oil into that. That can be drizzled over fish. You can drizzle that over beef. We've done here before. We've done it with grilled pork tenderloin before, so pretty much any kind of meat you can use them on. That's what I like to do.
And for anybody with a sweet tooth, the blood orange olive oil is actually amazing with chocolate ice cream or a little piece of dark chocolate. So we use that in quite a few different savory dishes as well. But for anybody raiding the fridge right now or going to the freezer, that blood orange olive oil and chocolate ice cream is a must try as well.
What about the chili oil?
Chili, so I'm a big fan. Chili and Meyer lemon are probably my top 2. Chili oil is one thing I like to put on tuna, especially with the crudo. It gives it that nice little spice to it. Or if you make some pasta at home, you can use that as kind of a little topper just to give it a little bit of heat.
And the nice thing is, where I love spice and my wife is not a spicy person, you can add the chili oil at the finish and make as much of that flavor profile as you'd like to any dish for yourself, which is also a nice touch. So. And then And Scott Reed, our national sales rep, is saying Meyer lemon olive oil with avocado toast. So
I can see that,
also
yeah.
another delicious, easy incorporation. I'd put an over easy egg on there again, get that nice runny yolk into that bread. But all really wonderful ideas.
Yeah, pretty much anything you think, if you're, at least for myself, if you're looking for any kind of lemon profile or a citrus profile, it will work perfect as that replacement. I've even seen done before a olive oil, how do you call it, the ice cream? The Italian ice cream.
Gelato?
Gelato, there you go. So they made an olive oil gelato, which you can use a replacement and throw in Meyer lemon or the blood orange just to give it that kind of fruit flavor as well, added to it. So, anything else on there?
I have not many questions coming on Facebook if
Okay.
anybody is curious that way. But if you guys also have any wine questions, you're welcome to direct some of those that way. We didn't quite taste or touch on some Super Tuscan. Chef and I both told you it was our favorites. But please open up a glass of wine and feel free to ask us any questions you might have.
Chef, what's on the menu for next Friday's cooking class?
Next Friday, so I believe we are doing a gnocchi class. So Chef Jamie is going to be back next Friday with you guys. I believe we're doing the same time as well. So I'll be able to see some fresh gnocchi made. I'm sure I'll do some sauces. I whip up a few things for you guys. So hope you guys enjoy that and stay tuned for that as well. Alrighty, well, thank you guys for joining us. That's it. Again, hope everybody stays safe. We'll see you next week. Take care.